Hello and welcome back to Pod Popper's Place. This is Penny, and today I want to share with you a sketch from Kendra's Card Challenge number 13. Today I'll be using the Scrappy Boys stamp set Cute Girls Book Lovers, along with the Song as Old as Time stamp set and the stencil for the bookshelf as well. I like things to look like they're supposed to look, so I like that Scrappy Boy gives you a colored photo of what Belle should look like in her outfit, rather than me trying to remember from the movie. Even though it is my favorite movie, I probably would have gotten some of the colors wrong. I am doing sketch number 3 for this card because it has a nice big area for me to create a scene, and I'm going to use the stencils to create this large bookshelf because we know how much Belle loved her books, and I wanted these to be different colored books. It's a little bit harder to make them different colored because some of them are super close together, so it would be simpler to just have all the books kind of the same color, at least in the different little sections. But I do use some Altenew little mini blending brushes so that I can try and color some more individually, and it works out okay, but I think that it's not as neat and tidy as I normally would like it. I end up using some mint tape to kind of block off these last few books so that I can add one last color to my bookcase. It worked out pretty well, and if I hadn't used the mint tape, it definitely would have gotten ink in the other book areas. The second stencil provides some additional details to the books and also adds some shelving. Before adding additional details, I had to figure out where I wanted to put my sentiment first, and then I also decided to add the little teacup chip and a rose. Because the rose and chip have such fine details on their stamped image, I wanted to go ahead and heat emboss that with some clear embossing powder so that when I Copic color them, the ink will not bleed out onto the rest of the paper. Even though I've had these stamps for at least 6 months, I hadn't used them yet, so I did a test stamp just to make sure that it would stamp clearly before I did the embossing powder on it using the Versamark black ink. And of course with chip, third time is the charm, right? Because I stamped it fine and then I went to stamp it again and messed it up, so I had to do a third one. Because I am stamping the sentiment Once Upon a Time directly to my background, I wanted to do a few test stamps before I did the actual one, because I just knew that since these are new, that it might not stamp perfectly well the first couple times. And once I cleaned it off a couple times, it was ready to go. So the images are pretty small to color, so I really didn't need to do much blending of any sorts, but I did use some Stampin' Up! Blender pens just to hopefully give it a little bit of dimension in the rose. And then I ended up using the just straight Stampin' Write markers for the smaller areas because the alcohol ink just spread so far. And then I wanted to use this gold pen. It's a paint pen for chip, but I don't know, it doesn't come out very well. And so I ended up just squirting some onto the paper and then just kind of dipping it like a paintbrush and using it that way instead. And I also used that gold just to do some touches on the books that were on the bookshelf as well. And then once again, I just used the colored images that Scrappy Boy sends with the stamps to figure out the right colors to color chip. The last thing I did to the rose was just add some Spectrum Noir sparkle pen to the rose, and then I glued chip and the rose just straight onto the background. But I didn't want to just glue Belle onto the background, so I decided to pop her up on a wobbler. I struggled a little bit with the colors of this. I ended up using colors that I wasn't really super thrilled with. I did add a wood embossing folder to the background just because, you know, it's a bookshelf, so it would be wood maybe. But the paper I was using, I thought ended up blending in together too much with my 6x6 pattern paper. But the other side just wasn't really usable for this particular card, so I couldn't flip them over even though it was double-sided. So I do like how this turned out, but I do wish I could have changed the colors of the background paper that I used. It would have been a little bit better with something that popped maybe a little bit more. I love wobblers, but I do now add some glue on top of the adhesive because I find that it won't stay indefinitely. It'll eventually want to come off. So in order to keep it on there, I add a little bit of liquid glue to both ends of the wobbler just so I know that my card will stay together. While this card sketch does call for a little tag up in the right corner, I decided not to use it because it just looked a little weird covering up the books, and then I just finished off with some glossy accents. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you'll consider subscribing, and please check out all the details below for how to join in on Kendra's Card Challenge number 13.